welcome to our second episode of Start Her Up. Today we are going to talk about what motivated us to get into real estate and how we started those journeys.
I don't know that we have enough time to go into all the details, but I think it's going to be interesting for people to know, like, how did we get into real estate? Because I certainly did not begin my career thinking that I was going to be a real estate agent. I don't think
No,
most people
no,
think about
like
that. Did you?
in a million years, this is not where I saw myself by any means at all. Matter of fact, in high school, I had a scholarship for music for college.
Wow.
That talent is not there anymore. It's, if you don't use it, you lose it. So definitely lose it.
You definitely
However,
lose
that
it. I
was kind
agree.
of my thing then, is that I thought I was going to end up being a music teacher. Um,
You had a scholarship for music, so you actually
um,
could sing.
could is the key word.
Wow.
Could. My range isn't there anymore. But yeah, I actually thought I'd end up going into music. I didn't do that either. I ended up, if we're going to be raw and honest here, I got scared and ended up getting married at 19. He joined the Marine Corps and ended up in California for 4 years. And long story short, I've landed here. Um, here we are. Here we
Here we
are.
are.
Life is definitely not what it was then. And no, to see myself in sales of any capacity is kind of a scary thought when you think about it back then.
So you got a scholarship for
Yes.
music, you got scared, and instead of doing that, you thought you took the
No,
easiest way, which marriage is not easy,
we
by the
will.
way. We'll have a
We will.
we'll do a whole nother podcast on that. But you went through the path of
Mm-hmm.
going to California, getting
Yes.
married to a Marine, and what happened after that?
Well, it
Like,
didn't work
how did you
out,
end up in real estate?
obviously. So, long story short, on how I ended up back here is that after a couple of tours that he had some serious mental health issues and PTSD, things like that, that really disrupted his daily life. And we had a little girl. The day he actually left for his second tour to Afghanistan, I found out I was pregnant with my daughter, Addison. And like literal day he got on the
Wow.
bus. And so he went on that tour. That tour was awful. Long story short, there, one of the guys he was with took his place that day. They were looking for IEDs in the ground and with metal detectors, and the guy took his place that day because he was like, "You have a baby on the way, get in the back," and he did that, and that guy lost his life that day. And so they
Oh
came
my
with some
gosh.
serious mental health things for him. And he's I haven't talked to him in 11 years, but I don't think he's ever recovered from it. And the thing is when you join the military, especially the Marine Corps, I feel like when you get out, there's such a stigmatism, a taboo, really, with getting help. Like, how can I be a strong Marine if I need help? And I think that's okay. And I think that's okay. So
Oh
that was
man.
the long story short. About 3 days after he got back from his tour, I'm 8.5 months pregnant at this point. My dad died, which we can get into the story on that. So he didn't even really have time to adjust. We had to get back to Missouri and deal with all of that because it wasn't like an expected thing. He died at work on the job. Um, so that essentially brought us back to Missouri. He didn't renew his contract. We had to come back. We had our daughter right around that time frame too, and things just didn't. Again, he just wouldn't get help. So I ended up going out and being a single mom. My daughter and I, we moved closer to the city. We were out in the country, and I worked 3 jobs. My friend Allison was really great. She helped me take care of Addie so I could work to get us through, and just all the things. And I finally found a job at a company called, I don't think I should say the name actually, They're not with us anymore. The company went under. Um, I worked for this company, and they were a commercial MLS. So they had a competitor. The competitor and them were in a lawsuit, and that's where I got my start in real estate. I was in real estate sales, and I would call people to set up appointments to see our MLS program for commercial real estate and set those appointments up. And then I would send somebody out in the field to actually go pitch it. So that was kind of where real estate really started. Towards the end of my time there,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of sensed that something was wrong. They were in the middle of this giant lawsuit, and there was this guy that I worked with, and he was also a real estate agent. And I had asked him one day, I was like, what should I, do you think I could do it? And he said, oh, you absolutely could. And he's like, here, he handed me basically the keys and said, go. And so I quit my job. I still owned my dad's home at the time, so I sold it so that I could have some money set back to get started. And I just haven't stopped since. It's exactly
Wow. And what year was that
2017.
when you got your license? 2017. You know what the funny thing about that is? You and
Oh,
I got
really?
licensed the
So,
same year.
so what's your story, Jess? So
2017. Yeah.
that's mine in a nutshell. So what's yours?
Yours is a lot simpler than mine. I mean, I just want to touch a couple things on your story. Isn't it amazing how there's always key people in our lives that kind of
Yeah,
path the way for us? It's like what's meant to be, it's meant to be. It doesn't matter like where you are in life. Somehow you
absolutely.
end
And
up where you're supposed to be,
I do think it's
right?
very
And
key
so,
to listen to those intuitive things. Up until that point that I found my way in real estate, I was so lost in this world. And in hindsight, now, like, I see it, but in hindsight, I was lost because I wasn't on my path. And once I found that key to my path,
mm,
everything has just kind of clicked ever since. And I found myself off of it, like, since I've been in real estate. And I just know, and I just have to come back to my path. And that's where I'm meant to be, because I do believe we're all meant for something. And if we get off that path, it's kind of like the path of resistance. It's kind of like, it is. Yeah.
it's kind of painful.
That's
Yeah.
the word. Yeah.
It's
So I was
like
going to
going
say, it's
against the
like going
grain
against the grain,
almost,
and
you know?
it just feels harder and complicated. And not that everyday life isn't complicated. It
Yes,
is, but it just, everything feels more natural. You know what I mean?
exactly. Well, mine is a little lengthier, but I'll be see. I was born in the year, no, just kidding. So, my background is in accounting, believe it or not. I love numbers. I'm the type of person that if I'm very curious, so I actually read annual reports from for companies. I've read a couple in the last, 5 years, just following the stock and whatnot. So I'm very nosy when it comes to numbers. I feel like numbers really speak stories, like if you pay attention and you see trends. So that actually helps me and serves me really well in real estate today because I'm more of the analyst when it comes to setting price for listings, for homes that we're selling. And it helps me, put a real strong offer together when it comes to representing buyers. So accounting degree has helped me and serving, tremendously. But ironically, I only worked as an accountant for about 5 years. I started, I went to UMKC. I graduated
Woo!
from Amaru. And right after college, I went to work for a CPA firm. That didn't work out because I'm more social. So being an accountant stuck in a four-wall, room is kind of depressing, and it was. So I ended up joining Cerner. A friend helped me got a job at Cerner, and I actually worked in the accounting department for 2 years, and I moved to the financial planning and analysis, a lot of budgeting and things like that. So I loved it. I loved working with numbers. I just really corporate was not for me, even though it's a great company. It just wasn't for me. And so at the time I was married, and I told my husband I want to, just be a home wife. In a time where everybody was telling you like go get a job
Yeah.
and be your own woman. I just wanted to be a housewife. And so by being a housewife, I actually got to work in retail. And then from retail, I got to learn that I actually have a gift, which is sales, you know? And so from the retail experience and being a housewife and things like that, it came to a time where we had to sell our house. And so we hired a realtor who he's good. He's still in business. But he was more of the type of agent that is like, sign here, we'll list your house and I'll sell it. And if we have to decrease the price, we'll decrease it, but don't do anything to the house. You know what I mean? Like, and it's fine. It's a business way of doing things. But we were like, the carpet is kind of ugly, and like we need to do this, we need to do that. So to maximize the price on our home, we did all of that. So I kind of got to experience what it was like to be an engaged seller, because I was a stay-at-home wife. So I was really like, I was organizing. I read books about staging. I read books about organizing the home and what works with design, interior design, and things like that. And the house did not sell, ironically. So we hired another agent, and she was the opposite. She was very engaged, but she was asking for things that my now ex-husband and I were like, it doesn't make sense. Like she was, and at the time it didn't make sense, but now I understand. She wanted to appear that she was doing us a service when she
Yeah.
wasn't really working for us. In other words, it's like, yeah, I need you to host a party for a bunch of agents to come look at your house. And it's like, I'm not going to pay for a bunch of catering. She basically asked me to pay for catering so that she could host the home open for brokers. And I'm like, are they going to buy the house? Because I will. But if these are other agents, I don't want to throw a party for you.
Because
so she got fired.
If anybody listening who is in real estate or knows the business, those kinds of parties are hosted when a house isn't selling. Yes, that's normal, but you don't ask the seller to pay for it. There's a really cool thing to get. Yeah,
Never.
There's a really
that's
cool
part
thing
of our
to get at the end
marketing
of a transaction.
budget.
It's called a commission,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what those are for, is to cover those expenses.
Exactly.
And that's what a lot of the public doesn't realize, is that they're like, oh, well, you guys get paid like such a huge cut, but they don't understand the expenses on the back end. But it sounds like this particular agent was just trying to make big profit. Huge profit.
Yeah, she just wanted to throw us a party, and I was just like blown away. So we went back to agent number one. We lowered the price and we sold the house. So that was my first experience in real estate, really selling that property and then buying our next home, which was what I used to call it. It was my dream home. It was on acreage. It was huge. It was exactly what we were looking for. And something that I still tell my clients today is that you might have a budget, but if I find you the perfect home, are you going to walk away from it for, 10,000? No. 15,000? No. 20,000? No. And then I just keep going until I find what is that maximum point for people, because that's what happened to us. We had a budget of 300,000 at the time. We ended up buying a house that was 350,000. So never assume that you understand everything the client is thinking without asking. So that was another lesson, right? It's just always ask, because they might be telling you one thing because that's what they're imagining. But at the end of the day, things change and they might see something, that they didn't know back when they started looking for a house, that are more aware now. And so again, that was my first experience in real estate, the selling and the buying of my home. of our homes, but this was in 2011. And because of that retail experience, I learned that I had a gift for sales. I just had to fine tune it. When I turned 18, I sold Mary Kay, and then I was selling like this other brand of cleaning products called Norwex. So I was selling things on the side, but it was always like a hobby. I never made any money doing that, because I didn't have any skills or any like a way of doing things. So I was very good at selling it, but I wasn't very good at like asking for people to pay me back. You know what I mean? So um, after that, I went through like a little life changing experience, and I decided to go for the job I always wanted, which was to be a flight attendant. So I actually applied to be a United flight attendant, and I got the
Wow.
job on the spot. Out of 35 people, me and this other girl got hired on the spot, which is really difficult. They compare becoming a flight attendant and getting hired to getting into Harvard. That's how difficult the interview process is. And you got to be like educated, intelligent, quick. They're looking for people that can react in an emergency, because that's actually their main
Yeah.
job, is to keep people safe and get people out of a plane because of an emergency. And it was a 6-week training. And when my husband at the time found that, he was like, no, I don't want you gone that long. So I had to quit my dream job. I had to reject it. And that put me in a week-long depression of, oh my God, I cannot believe I got my dream job and now
Mm.
can't have it. And at the time I was very depressed, but now looking back, it's like, you know, I'm kind of glad that I didn't, because traveling for work, it's gotta be terrible.
Yeah.
It's gotta be so horrible. So, no hard feelings there. But I did think, okay, if I cannot do that, then what can I do? And I thought of, well, I need to hone my skills on sales, because I feel like that's where my gift, my calling is. I did not want to go back into accounting for sure. And so I ended up going into the Subaru dealership by my house. And I told him, the GM, that I wanted to learn how to sell. And he told me, you do everything I tell you, and I'm going to make you a lot of money. And I was like, sure, sure. To me, it was like sales
Mhm.
university, getting hired at Subaru. So I did that for my first car. My first sales car was a Subaru Impreza, WRX Impreza, if for those of you that know about cars. Um, and it was so funny because, the GM told me this is the 12-step process that you take someone on the purchase of a car. And I skipped all of those steps, and I just asked the guy, do you want to buy it? And he said, yes. And I said, okay. And I just told
Wow.
him where to sign, and he bought the car. And so the GM was like, well, did you show him the car? I'm like, no, because it's snowing outside. Well, did you do this? Did you show him this? I'm like, no, 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 no. I just told him if he wanted to buy it. He said yes, and I made him sign. He was like, okay, whatever. So that was my first sale. But 4 months later, I became salesperson of the month at Lee Summit Subaru, and that really, I've never seen so much money in my whole life, to be honest. And it wasn't about the money. Like, I really wanted to learn a new skill, which was sales, because I didn't know where life was going to take me next. But I definitely wanted to hone in my gift, right, of sales. And so I did that for a whole year, because I told myself I am not quitting until I make it a year. And it was around September, and I was telling my mom and my sister that the hours, the business hours, were very tough. We used to work 12-hour shifts, and I worked Monday through Wednesday. Thursday was my day off, and then I would work Fridays, and I would work Saturdays. Every Saturday, no matter what, I would work about 10
Yeah.
hours. And so it was brutal. It was brutal. So a lot of hours. You had to be at the dealership no matter what, even if you were not selling a car, until like 10 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night. And I just didn't want that lifestyle anymore. So I was telling my sister and my mom this, and my sister just goes, "Why don't you go into real estate?" To which I replied, "Absolutely not. No, that is not for me." And funny thing was, 2 months later, there I was getting my license. Because I interview a couple agents and I was asking them 1,000 questions about the job and everything, and they were kind of interviewing me back. And one of the agents was a friend of a friend, and her name is Teresa. And Teresa told me, "Jess, I don't tell this to very many people, but I think you'll be really good at this. I think you should go for it." And I was like, "Okay, well, she's been in business for 15 years. I think she knows what she's doing." So there I am, getting my license. December
I
2017,
was
that's
just
when I
right
got
before you.
licensed.
I got mine in September, and I made my first sale in January of 2018. It took,
Oh, okay, about 3 months later, yeah, I got my first sale. It closed the end of March
yeah,
2018.
yeah.
So yes,
You
about
know,
3 months
that's
later.
the thing about going to real estate school is they teach you the laws, they teach you the do's and the don'ts, but they don't teach you to be an agent. That's just, yeah, they just, it's about
No,
connecting
they
with the right
don't.
people and the right brokerage that is willing to get you there, and finding the people that care enough about you to teach you and honing on your skills the right way.
Hmm.
Because there is no one way to be a real estate agent.
No, and that's what I love about the industry. You can be whatever, fill in the blank background. You can be white collar, blue collar, you can have education, you can have no education, you can have experience, you can have no experience.
Yes,
There is a client for you to help. There's someone that's going to connect with you. And if you have the heart of a
yes,
teacher, you're going to be able to explain things and let them make the decisions. Because I think a lot of people worry about, if I hire an agent, they're going to tell me what to do. It's like, no, 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 no. We want to tell you what your
yes.
options are
Well, that
and
brings
let you
me
decide.
to what my passion really is for real estate. So, in the mix of everything that I had going on, and whenever I was working for that company, the MLS, commercial MLS company, I had bought myself a small house. And back then, I was my mid 20s. I don't know the exact age anymore when I bought my house. But as I was looking for one, I was like, I can't afford to hire somebody to help me with this process. I was clueless. So clueless. I had no
Oh,
idea
man.
how any of it worked. And so driving around one day, I had found this for sale by owner and called the sign, and they knew what to do. They knew what to do. So I followed their lead, and I had a couple people in my ear kind of just like, you need to make sure you do an inspection, little things like that. So I did those things, and but I didn't have anybody to help me interpret that inspection. I didn't have anybody to tell
Mm.
me if I was doing the right things. I just did what the seller told me to and went on with my merry way. I didn't know what I was doing. No clue. And I was buying in cash. Yeah,
So, and now that you look
so
back,
scary.
how
Well, and I
scary is
learned the hard
that?
way. And I it was a very small house. And so I bought it in cash. And in 2014, houses, it wasn't, I worked really hard to get there. Okay. That's all I'll say. I worked really hard to come up with those funds. And I didn't realize that I could have pissed them away very easily by not knowing better. And there's things when I got into the house that the inspection clearly said, but I was in my early 20s. I had no idea how to interpret that, you know? So cross problems among problems, and
Hmm.
it became a bit of a money pit, but I loved my first house. I still have such a deep love for my first house. But as a real estate agent and knowing that, I feel like it gives me a different kind of edge where whenever I talk to people, especially first time home buyers, That's one of the first things out of my mouth to them is I'm like, I'm telling you this because of my own experiences. This to work with a real estate agent, it's not the cost that you think it's going to be. And I explain how that process works.
I'm so glad you touched on that because,
No,
yeah, I
no,
mean, how do you know if you know if you don't know, right? If
yeah,
you're like a young 20-year-old person, you don't know what you don't know. That same thing happened to me with my first home. We bought it from my husband's friend. It was
hmm
a lease to own type of deal, but turned out that the home had all kinds of foundation issues. So it actually cost us money to repair the home. When we sold the house, it cost us money, because we had to disclose that there was work done that had to be redone. So, those things that you just don't know, like what's your right?
right.
What kind of
And that's
inspection should we
where
have got?
the
You know?
passion for the industry really comes in. Am I a salesperson at heart? No, not at all. But I want to see people succeed at their goals. And I can say that because as you just learned in a small snippet of my very condensed story of how I got here, um, that wasn't an easy thing to do. Um, Looking back on it now, like it's like, holy crap, I cannot believe that I came from there and I'm here. And so if I can do it,
Hmm.
anybody can. You know what I mean? Even if it's something that's just, I don't want to say as simple, something as amazing as owning your own home. How many people are out there who are like, I could never do that? How
Oh my
I,
gosh. And
you
they
know,
pay
they
rent
don't
for
understand
decades,
that rent
you know?
actually is costing them more. And that's not a sales pitch. You know, that's not a sales pitch at all. Rent does cost more, regardless of how you look at it. And there are
Hmm.
situational things where people should definitely be renting, and I get that. But I don't want people out there thinking that there's not more in this life for me. I'm going to be stuck in this 9 to 5 cycle, and I'm just going to be stuck renting forever because I can't get ahead. I want them to know that there are options for them and they don't have to live that life, you know?
Yeah, and that it doesn't take a college degree. It doesn't take, thousands and thousands of hundreds and thousands of
No.
dollars to acquire a home. There's a lot of programs out there that offer no cash down. FHA is a great program for first-time home buyers. So there's a lot of things that, as an agent, we can provide for buyers. Let's just focus on buyers for a second. That have just no clue. I don't even know where to start. Like, how do I
Yeah.
find a home?
And when you run across those
So
people, that's usually the first thing they
I
say
agree.
is like,
And
I don't even know how to do this. Like, I don't know where to start. Like, and think about it. Like, you see title companies everywhere. Like, you see them on corners in shopping centers and banks, things like that. Before you started in the real estate industry, I mean, maybe you, because you're very analytical. Did you really understand the function when you saw the word title company?
never. As a matter of fact, we didn't even go to a title company until we sold our house because, like I said, the first time was we purchased it from a friend. So I don't even
Right,
know if I signed,
right.
my life away on that first purchase. But yeah, I mean, you don't even know
Yeah.
what your rights are or what's the function of these places, right? Like the title company, the loan officer, the inspector,
It's like an
you don't
onion.
know.
I'm going to use like a little line from Shrek there. Real estate is like an onion. There are so many layers to it. And I don't think you can even peel back all the layers as an
Mhm.
agent until you have done it for some time.
I agree. And since you said, earlier that you're not really a salesperson at heart, I don't, when I say I wanted to learn how to sell, it
Right,
doesn't mean that I wanted to
right.
manipulate or force people into doing things. What I wanted to do was I wanted to use my gift
Yes.
of knowing things and like I said, giving options for people that don't
Yeah.
know and then letting them decide. So, like when I was selling cars, when you look at those contracts, those lease contracts or the purchase contract, they're like humongous, and you only have like a few minutes to look at them. So one of the things that I did to make myself different was I actually read that whole thing and didn't memorize it, but I knew what it said, and I would go point by point by point, just
Mhm.
like we do in a listing agreement or a buyer's agreement. This point says this. Feel free to read it if you like. This point says this. Feel free to read it if you like. And then just giving that tiny explanation to people. This is what you're signing. Like, this is what this contract says. This is where you're being binded to legally, right? And that really helped me a lot with, I don't know if you're aware, but like Subaru has this OnStar thing. Like if you crash a Subaru, it has a thing that calls emergency and all that. Well, that was an additional service. I sold that every time because I would explain it to them in a way that it's like, listen, if I would have it, I would buy it because it does this, 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 that. And then most people would be like, that makes sense. And for it cost, it
Yeah.
makes sense. So that's what I meant by like, I guess it makes me a salesperson, but in a reality way, it's like, I'm just telling you what works, like, what are the
Well, and
options
that's what
out
I
there?
love
And
about you,
let you
Jess. So
decide.
Jess and I work together on a professional level outside of the podcast as well. And we are so different, but so much the same in a lot of ways. So what I love about Jess is that she's constantly, we even had this conversation today, stop overthinking things and stop overcomplicating things. She is just so straight to the point and matter of fact. And I think people need that, you know? Um, and so I think that's whenever she was telling the story about the guy that came in and she's like, do you want to buy the car? I was thinking about that. That's so Jess. She's just so direct and so to the point, and it's beautiful. That is so beautiful to have that kind of talent.
Yes. So I attract the people, who are my clients are the type of people that are busy, that they have an idea of what to do and they just want
Yeah.
somebody to take charge.
Yes.
That's my type of client, right? Uh, who doesn't
Engineers.
like me at all?
Engineers.
Somebody who, not engineers. Well, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, because they're like, I need to
Hmm.
think about it some more, and you're pressuring me to,
Yeah.
so yeah,
I've
you're
worked
right.
with several
Engineers, you're right.
engineers,
They're
and
like,
they're always so interesting to me. I love it though, because I understand their thought process because I have to think about every little detail and how it's going to function, and I want to know how it's going to turn out before it turns out. And Jess is just like, hold my beer. I love it. Um, but yeah, so like
you know what's funny though? There's a lot of engineers in my life, and my dad's an engineer. So, but yeah, you're right. Now that I think about it, yeah, the
mhm,
analyticals, the ones that I really think about it, they feel like I'm pushy, but it's not that I'm pushy. It's just that I've done this
yep,
before. Trust
yeah,
me, get an inspection. It's like, and they're like, do I
you
really
do.
need that
And
inspection? It's
that's
like,
and
yes,
that's
get
where
an
we
inspection.
work beautifully together, really, because like whenever it comes to, I've had a couple engineers, not just one, but a couple that I've worked with, and they go in and they're like, how many plugins are in this room? Because I know what functions I need for this particular room. Now let me figure out those functions. And I'm like, all right, let's go count them. You know, like, so if it was a matter of fact person, like what Jess is talking about, like I have had those, and it does throw me sometimes because I'm like, okay, here's what you need to do, and here's why, and they're like, cool, where do I sign? Okay, like,
Those are my people.
yeah, I'm there and I'm prepared and I'm ready to educate and explain. And like those people, like I'm like, every time I talk to somebody and I send them over contracts, I'm like, read the contract, let me know if you have questions, and then I get it back pretty immediately. And I'm like, okay.
But see,
Yes.
everybody has their own type of client. This is why the industry is so amazing, because it's like everybody's personality will attract
Yeah.
someone and will help someone. Because, I mean, the whole idea to me is
Yep.
about helping people, like you said. Do you want to buy a house? Great. Is it your first, your
Great.
second, your third, your last? It doesn't matter. Like, I want to help you. Do you want to sell? Do you want to invest? There's people that want to invest and flip homes and rehab them and rent
Right.
them.
Well, and I
I
just
can
did
help
a
with that too.
TikTok on this the other day where it said like my job is not to pressure you into buying or selling a home. My job is to help you figure out what that looks like for you at your pace. We're not going to walk into a home and be like, "Oh, this one looks great. The foundation's cracked. Fantastic. Let's get it." I don't. I've literally walked into homes with people and been like, "No, no."
Well, listen, Crystal, if you and I had the power to convince people to spend over $400,000,
Right.
we wouldn't be in real estate. If I had the power of convincement, there's no way I would be working
Right.
for like the United Nations
I
or
would have
something
my
like
own
that.
personal jet
But we
next to
don't.
Elon
We
Musk by
don't.
now if I had that same. Like,
Exactly. Exactly. So, like,
no.
nobody can convince anybody of even spending one penny. So, please, if you have had a bad experience with a real estate agent, if you are thinking about, purchasing a home, moving, things like that, please reach out to somebody like me and
Yes.
Crystal with the heart of a teacher that wants to teach, that wants to share with you information, and who's not going to push you into like signing a contract or anything like that. I mean, there's actually laws. We're held by laws of the state of Missouri and Kansas, and I also have my Florida license, but we are held to certain standards because in a reality,
Right.
it's like a boxer, right? A boxer is set to different standards when he's on a street fight compared to a civilian. And same thing with us. We have license, we have standards we have to meet, we have rules, we have regulations, we have continuing education we have to do every year to renew our license. So we're always held to a different standard to make sure that you are protected. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you know this, Crystal, but I think it's important for people to know that the reason we have a license is to protect the consumer. The state of Missouri Real Estate Commission does this to protect consumers, not to
Yes.
protect
No,
the
I
agents.
totally love that. And we're getting close on time, so I'm going to kind of wrap it up here. So if you find an agent that you kind of trust your gut when you're talking to an agent, trust your gut. Because if you are talking to somebody and you're looking to buy or sell,
Mhm.
and you get that feeling like they're not listening to what you're telling them, if they're doing more talking than you are and they're not listening, or they're rushing the conversation, or anything that just feels intuitively off, shop another agent. That's okay. You don't have to use the first agent you pick up on. For like, if you call Zillow or realtor.com, you don't have to use an agent if it doesn't feel right to you. Don't be afraid to hurt their feelings. I know there's people that I've worked with where we just didn't fit, and that's
Mhm.
okay. That's okay. That's why they make them of all types. So you just have to listen to your intuition and not be afraid to go with your gut and hire who feels right for you. Interview agents, because if you connect with, that's your
I
agent,
agree.
and that'll be your agent for life. Yeah.
I agree. I agree. And here's another thing, guys. We are actually doing workshops for buyers and sellers. So if you ever want to stop by, even if you're not interested in buying in Missouri or Kansas or Florida, doesn't matter. Just stop by. Let us know.
Yeah,
We'd love to send you
absolutely.
the
We can do
link.
that. We can hook you up with the right agent and make sure they fit for you. And we're not, a ton of our podcasts are not going to be directly real estate related, but I do think, on an ending note, it is important as you're listening and getting to know us, who we are and where we came from. So this is a really good start. This is a really good start. And I can't wait to dive a little bit deeper into some of the things that we talked about today. I'm like, how we got there.
I agree. I agree. Because at the end of the
Yeah.
day,
And a
we are
business
business
owner is a
owners.
business owner. We all face the same struggles. Really, we do. Especially starting out. Um, how am I going to pay these bills off? How am I going to make this work? It's a big and scary step. I don't care if you're selling something as simple as Mary
Hmm.
Kay, like you were talking about. Like, that's somebody's start. That's somebody's saying, okay, I can do more. So we just want to be here to encourage that, you know?
I agree. And we'll see you next episode. Thank you for
All right. We're
watching
Jessica.
and
Yeah, we're
listening to our
Jessica, Crystal
stories
and
of
Jessica,
Started
and we'll
Up.
see you next time.